I am going to start a new review series called TV Treasures. This is a series where I look at old and new shows and either review them season by season or just a show as a whole. So, this is TV Treasures. So, what am I going to start this review series with? Well, I figure since this is my first TV review, I'm going to go do something nostalgic, at least to me. So, with that in mind, well, I bet you're all wondering, why am I starting this review series with Full House of all things? Well, for a few reasons. One, I have to capitalize on Fuller House's last season, and yes, I do know Fuller House ended a few months ago, but I had to binge watch through almost the entire first season. And second, after counting down the worst Disney remakes, god damn it, I need some cheesy goodness in my life. So let's start with the premise before we talk about the theme song. I bet a lot of you already know what the premise is, but in case you don't, here's the rundown. Full House is about Danny, who after the loss of his wife brings in his brother-in-law, Jesse, and his friend Joey to help raise his children. Now that we've gotten the premise out of the way, let's talk about that catchy as hell theme song.
Whatever happened to predictability? The milkman, the paperboy, evening TV. Did I get delivered here? Somebody tell me, please. This whole world's confusing me. Clouds as mean as you've ever seen. Ain't a bird who knows you're true. Then a little voice inside you whispers, don't sell your dreams so soon. Everywhere you look, everywhere's a heart, a hand to hold on to. Everywhere you look, everywhere's a face of somebody who needs you. Everywhere you look, when you're lost out there and you're all alone, life is waiting to carry you home. Everywhere you look, everywhere you look, right out.
Now that we've gotten the theme song out of the way, let's talk about what I think of this show, as well as its reputation. Now, this show has a very divided reputation, with people either loving it or downright hating it. But revisiting this show as an adult, I can kind of see both sides of the coin. I could see why people love it, but I could also see why people hate it. But what do I think of this show? Well, I love it. I like the premise, and I really find these characters to be quite enduring. Given how I have to keep this TV Treasures review short, I'm going to try to do characters, recurring themes, favorite episodes, and all that in one swipe. Okay? Let's get going. Before we talk about the characters, let's get into a little history. The show was made by the brainchild of Jeff Franklin, who has a few movies and shows under his belt, including Just One of the Guys, Summer School, Bosom Buddies, and The Jerry Chandler Show. He pitched an idea to ABC called House of Three Comics, a show about three comedians living together. But ever since the Bing Cosby Show, every show had to be a family show. So he changed their personalities, only made one a comedian, and gave it 3 girls, and retitled the show as Full House. Now that I've talked about the history, let's talk about the characters. First, there's Danny Tanner. Everyone considers him to be the clean freak, but in this first season, he's not like that. He's just a TV reporter. And it's worthy to note that John Posey was originally going to play him, and you could still see him in the pilot. And there's Jesse, who loves to wear leather, is obsessed with his hair, and loves Elvis. And then there's my favorite character, Joey, mostly because he kind of reminds me of me, in the sense that we both love cartoons, we both crack jokes and are wacky, and we both dress up for certain occasions. And then there's DJ and Stephanie. Not really a whole lot to say about them, but they are adorable and very cute. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. This is Kimmy Gibbler, who, as the series went on, would get rather annoying. Now that we've gotten characters out of the way, let's talk about the humor. Most of the humor revolves around corny jokes, and I can kind of see why it would turn people off. Some of the rest of the humor revolves around references to TV shows and movies. People seem to forget that Full House isn't just about the jokes. There's also some dark and mature themes like lost, grief, and finding your place in the world. A good example of this is in the Thanksgiving episode, where Jesse mourns the loss of his sister, and Jesse and Danny have a heart-to-heart talk. I talked about most of the pros of this show. Are there any cons? Well, there is 2. If I had to name a few problems with this season, this would be it. This season is kind of boring. Another problem it has is that it keeps announcing Jesse and Joey's personality, as if we are literally too stupid to see it ourselves. Now, I'm not going to blame the actors on this. I'm mostly going to blame the writing. The problem with this show as a whole is that it has wasted potential. I feel like if they focused less on the corny jokes and less on trying to be goody two-shoes and more on those dark and mature themes, it could have been a great show. It could have been holed up there alongside the Brady Bunch and the Partridge Family. But as a whole, this show is a cheesy part of the 80s and 90s. It's not a perfect show by any means, but it's fun nonetheless. Well, that was my review of the first season of Full House. Now, Full House has 8 seasons. I'll get to that eventually. And as fantastic as Fuller House is, it's going to be a very long time before I even get to that series. So until then, so long.